La mañana café, por la tarde ron, ya estamos en la calle, sal de tu balcón.
Por la mañana café, por la tarde ron, ya estamos en la calle, sal de tu balcón.
Hola mi gente, welcome back to the second episode of Café con Yeli. If you're new here, my name is Yeli, I'm your host. I overshare, I drink way too much caffeine, and I say things that probably should have stayed in my notes app. Today's episode is going to be a little bit toxic, but in the best way. We're going to talk about toxic relationships and relationships that ultimately feel like boot camp and not like a partnership. And I'm not alone because I posted some polls on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, it's _life with Yeli. So let's unpack them, laugh a little bit, maybe cringe, and maybe, just maybe, let's just heal a tiny bit. Let's talk about these poll results. Okay, so the first poll I had, let me go on there. Can you be in love and still lose yourself? So I had 75% answer yes, I had 7% answer no, and then I had 18% answer been there, which is ultimately a yes. So the majority said yes. And I also agree, yes, you can be in love and still lose yourself. I 100% agree to that. You know, some people ask, well, how could you lose yourself when you're in love? When you're in a relationship, you're in a partnership, and it's a union, you're becoming one. So you kind of start merging with your partner. Your beliefs start being their beliefs start being your beliefs, and so on, right? So a lot of the times, there's always one that pours slightly more than the other. If you are a people pleaser, if you are the overpourer in a relationship, you tend to do things to make your partner happy. And when people lose themselves when they're in love, it's because they sit there and they're more focused on merging with their partner's lifestyle, and they're more focused on, okay, he loves this, she loves this, I'm gonna really do this, and I'm gonna pour into that. But what you're not realizing is you're pouring, and you're actually losing yourself. Every time you're just chipping away a little bit more at yourself, right? And 100%, I believe compromise is very important in a relationship. So I'm not, in any means, it's not regarding compromise. Yes, there is healthy compromise. But when you over-compromise and you start breaking your boundaries, right? And you start kind of like compromising on your non-negotiables. We all have non-negotiables. Everybody should be honest about what their non-negotiables are in a relationship. It's very important. If I absolutely hate snoring and I cannot be with somebody who snores, then I need to accept that, because it will never work. PSA, I do snore, so whoever's with me has to accept my snoring, okay? And I snore like a little groundhog, okay? I don't know if groundhogs snore, but whatever. But long story short, yes, when you start chipping away at your boundaries and you start compromising on your non-negotiables and start, breaking away from those things, what you're doing is you're now taking away from yourself and your needs. You're kind of just worrying about your partner and their needs, and it makes you start losing yourself. It makes you feel like you don't matter, and it could potentially arise more problems in the relationship. And we don't want that, right? So yes, definitely compromise in a relationship. I 100% agree that I think it's very important for both partners to compromise, but do not compromise on your non-negotiables, and do not sit there and break your own boundaries, okay? If you're not okay with something, it's okay not to be okay with it. Speak up, communicate. Communication is key. Communication is key with your partner. Communication is key with your family, with your friends, with anybody in your life. Speak up about it in a healthy manner, right? And say, hey, listen, like, this is not okay. I'm not okay with this. As much as I love you and I want to reach that level of love, this is just not something I'm willing to compromise on. And if your partner truly loved you, they would accept that and they would understand that. I had another one that said, have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship because it was exciting? And I had 41% answer yep, I had 32% answer never, and I had 27% answer not proud of it, but yes. So the majority said yes, not by much, but it was the majority of it. And I mean, from my own experience, for myself at least, I have definitely stayed in a relationship because the toxic was exciting, okay? So yes, sometimes that cat and mouse game and the chasing and this, it does become exciting. But what I have learned over time is that it's not worth it, right? So the long-term trauma and damage that brings to yourself and to your partner, it's just not worth it. Okay, yes, it's exciting, and you're starting to feel like the chase and this and that, but no, sometimes it could be so intense it could almost feel like a thrill, right? And I mean, like, at least for me, like, I love intense burning love. Like, it's just something about it, it just intrigues me, right? And that kind of becomes very addicting, like the thrill of it. But they get chemistry and passion confused for that toxicity, and the lines kind of start to blur. But I promise you, like, there is a line, there is a difference between having a lot of chemistry and having a lot of passion and ultimately being toxic. Like, there's a huge difference. Sometimes while you're on this roller coaster, this emotional roller coaster, you think that the highs kind of make up for the lows, and it should really never be like that. The excitement can feel like a powerful drug. Deep down inside, at the end of the day, it's not healthy for you. People stay in it and then they don't realize, like, the long-term effects until it's too late. But you start having self-esteem issues, your confidence kind of hits rock bottom. You start, in the future, let's talk about how you may have a healthy partner who's completely healed or mostly healed, and you don't know how to be receptive to that love because you start self-sabotaging. You're not aware of what it is to be loved in a healthy manner because you're so used to this toxic cycle and this emotional roller coaster, right? So yes, a toxic relationship could be fun, and it is fun at times because it's so intense and that burning love feels amazing, but it's not worth it. The lows are so much worse at the end than the highs. How can we avoid a toxic relationship? How can we avoid this from happening? So I think it's important to start seeing the signs from early on. Like, if there's just a lot of red flags, like, listen to your intuition, listen to your mind, to your heart, to your body, to your soul, listen to all of that. It's telling you something for a reason. Your intuition knows you better than anybody. Understand the difference between excitement and stability. You should feel safe, not thrilled. Your partner respects you and your boundaries and the things that matter to you. They will know that it's all about stability and creating that stability and not just that excitement. Sometimes you have to talk to somebody you trust, or even just take a step back and gain some clarity and just really, like, look at things from another perspective. And that's okay. Like, to step back is fine. There's nothing wrong with stepping back, taking some time, resetting. All of those things are very necessary. And most important, don't let the drama consume you. Do not let the drama be your normal, okay? It is not normal to have drama all the time. Create those emotional boundaries. When something seems off, say no. No is no, and that's it. You don't have to explain to yourself or to anybody why you don't want to partake in that. So emotional boundaries are very much valid. Let's get into the other question I asked, which was, which is worse? Again, and these were for both genders. Being too dependent or being emotionally available. So this one was 51% for being too independent and 49% for being emotionally unavailable. It was pretty much half-half. So the way I took this poll was, find your cup of tea that you want to drink. Shout out to Amaya Papaya. And whatever you're going to be able to deal with, the flavor you're going to be able to deal with for the rest of your life. Some people think being too dependent is worse, and some people think being emotionally available is worse. Personally, for me, I think being emotionally unavailable is worse. I feel like the being too dependent, we can work on that, right? Because you can outgrow those cycles. But I feel like being emotionally unavailable, it's a whole different ball game that we have to deal with. For me personally, I feel like one of the most important things in a relationship is being emotionally available. Honestly, I think that that's like up there with respect and loyalty and trust. People can have imperfections, right? Or people can have things that they need to change or we need to work on together. But if you're emotionally available, we will never get there. You will never sit there and listen to my needs, or I will never sit there and listen to your needs, whoever the person is that's emotionally unavailable. And you'll never take my feelings into consideration. You won't understand or be willing to change. And for me, that's just like a non-negotiable. I have been in relationships where my partners have been emotionally unavailable, and ultimately it just doesn't work out. If you are emotionally unavailable, there is seriously, and I say this with all love, due and respect, there is no reason you are in a relationship. Because to be in a relationship, you need to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable, you need to be emotionally available. Clock it. Does that make sense? Clock that T. Fellas. All right, let's get to the questions that the fellas answered. Okay, so I asked the guys, I said, fellas only, would you rather be needed or respected? And I already knew the answer to this, and I had 4% voted needed, and I had 96% vote respected. Ladies, I am not a man, but I have enough knowledge in the male area to know that you respecting your man is like 10/10 top tier, and is what they crave, what they want, what they admire. Respect really taps into like a man's need for valuing his character and for recognizing his qualities. It offers balance, independence, and also like affirms them at the same time that, you know, you respect them. If you're looking at the male genes from like a scientific point of view, I think respect is just, you know, top tier for them. I mean, we see it in the animal kingdom, we see it with lions, we see it with gorillas. The males, they're just so respected, and they're like the head honcho in that, you know, environment. And I think it's the same when it comes to us in human form. I think that the man should feel like that. And of course, I am an overly independent woman. I am very dominant, so I struggle with this myself. With men that have been in my life, I struggle in not per se respecting them, but not maybe giving them the respect to where they need to have that at, right? Because I feel like almost I need to be more dominant than they do, and that in all actuality it's not like that. I think that respect for males is all about their self-worth and tapping into their confidence, you know, and it does something to their egos. And yeah, I mean, overall we saw it here on the poll, and we know this every day, that men do not want to be needed. Getting into that, a very strong model that I've always had in every relationship, and I have told this to my past partners, is that I would rather be with a man that wants to be with me than needs to be with me. Because I don't want to have a relationship where if the day after tomorrow I'm not here, they don't know what to do because they needed me. You know, I want the man to want me, not need me. I want that if, God forbid, the day after tomorrow I pass away, they know what to do with my children, you know? And if the person needs you and you're passing away and you're not there the day after tomorrow, then they're not going to know what to do with themselves. There's a difference between want and need. I don't want to feel like my partner, if I get ripped away, my partner is going to be in shreds and doesn't know what to do, and he's going to be like a hot mess. No, I want to make sure that whatever reason it was that my partner was with me, it was because he wanted to be with me. Ladies, we have to respect our men. I'm going to start, you know what? I'm going to make that my New Year's resolution. It's not New Year's yet, but I'm going to make sure it's part of it. All right, my ladies, mis mujeres, mis chicas, let's get down to it. So I asked, which lie have you told yourself? And the options were, he's just bad at expressing himself. I got 39%. He'll change once he sees I'm different. I got 42%. And it's me, not him. I got 19%. So I think these were pretty good options, because I feel like at some point in my life, I have told myself all these lies. And I can honestly resonate with all three of them. Let's kind of just get down to the nitty gritty one by one. He's just bad at expressing himself. Ladies, and men, but this was for ladies. If a man wanted to, he would, okay? And that's all I'm gonna say to that. If he wants to express himself, he will do that. And if he doesn't know how to express himself, then you need to communicate with him and let him know that you would like that expression and give him the option to change that. You could be with a man who has never, ever expressed himself emotionally or in that way, right? But now if you're communicating and you're letting him know, you're giving him the option to change that. With you giving him the option to change that, you will then see in the future whether he took your feelings into consideration, or he said, you know what, YOLO, I don't care, it is what it is. If he attempts to change his behavior after that, then he is truly caring about what you think about him and his feelings. If he completely disregards whatever you're saying, then I'm just so sorry, he might just not be that into you. If a man wanted to, he would. And that's the same for the ladies. Fellas, if you have a girl who's not feeding into your emotional needs and doesn't express herself, and you're explaining that and you're asking for changed behavior and she's not changing it, then maybe she really just doesn't like you that much. And then that's when you need to take a step back, analyze and reset and say, well, am I okay with this? The second one, he'll change once he sees I'm different. You know, old Yeli, if old Yeli could see new Yeli, or new Yeli could go back in time and meet old Yeli, she would have slapped the shit out of her, because I used to have this in my head all the time. I mean, literally, I used to sit there and be like, well, he's going to change because he's going to see I'm different. And he might not want this and he might not want that, but once he sees me and he's with me, he'll see that I'm worth it. And honestly, guys, boy, was I wrong. They didn't give a shit. Just straight up, I ain't got no advice for y'all. The third one being, it's me, not him. I have so many mixed feelings on this response for some reason, and I feel like it almost makes me cringe a little bit, because it brings me back to a time where my self-esteem was truly so low and my confidence was so low, and I was really struggling with like my anxiety and my depression a lot. And yeah, I realized like it really was not me, you know. And if I could go back in time and give that little girl a hug, I would give her a hug and be like, listen, everything's gonna be okay. You're gonna turn out to be completely fine. You're gonna love who you are in the future, and you're gonna see that you really didn't need this. I wish I could do that, you know, and just offer that shoulder and that comfort to my younger self. But I also acknowledge that at the end of the day, all of that made me who I am today, you know, and I had to go through all those different phases in my life and different stages in my life to get to where I'm at today. And man, I love who I am today. To the ones that said it's me, not him, baby, no, don't do that to yourself, okay? And honestly, besides that, a relationship is a two-way street, all right? So you're both not satisfying each other in something. It's never just one person. If I'm failing you as a partner in a certain area, it's most likely because you're failing me as a partner in a different area. That is the consequence of how you're treating me in that, you know, original way. But, you know, with that being said, ladies, we need to stop lying to ourselves. We need to start journaling. We need to start working on ourselves and, you know, realize that it's not just us. When you start working on growth and your self-love and healing and all of the above, all of these statements that I put in here, they won't even matter at that point in time, because your self-love is going to radiate through and you won't even have to question yourself in any way. Ladies and fellas, because some were fellas who answered this, please work on yourself, water yourself. You are your most prized possession, and take care of yourself. You deserve it. And then the last and final poll that I had up were for the ladies, and it said, have you confused control for protection? And I had a 50-50 split answer. I had 50% of women say yep, and I had 50% of women say no. And I think that's a pretty accurate response. Our past traumas and our childhood traumas play a lot into effects of our day-to-day basis and our daily routines and also our relationships. If you were raised in a traumatic household, then maybe control from a man can kind of come up as protection, but it really isn't. And you don't know how to differentiate the both, which it's okay. Overall, you just have to kind of work on being able to differentiate those. Let's just start by saying that control and protection are two very different things, okay? Protection comes from a place of love and a place of care. Control does not come from a place of love. Control typically comes from a place of fear, dominance, and insecurity. It involves trying to make decisions for other people and then limiting their freedom in a sense without really taking into consideration what the person would like or need. Versus Protection comes from a place of care, empathy, concern. It's about offering your help, but also respecting their independence. I think it's important to evaluate whether your needs are being respected in your relationship, whether your boundaries are being respected in your relationship, and most importantly, I honestly feel like you have to look out for those red flags and those signs of manipulation. And I know it's really, really hard because when you are vulnerable and are emotionally available for somebody, we tend to not see those signs of manipulation and we see them dressed up as signs of care and love, when in all actuality, it is manipulation. And as hard as it is, maybe take a step back and realize, look, this is not something I wanted to do. I'm being manipulated into doing this. This is not how I really feel. And when you start being honest with yourself, when you're taking that step back, that's when you realize like the fog kind of starts clearing from your eyes and you start realizing, wow, I'm being manipulated. Like, this is not my decision. I'm making this decision for someone else. It's normal to want to protect somebody in a relationship, but when it starts turning into control, you're undermining your own relationship. Most importantly, that it doesn't come at the cost of freedom, trust, or respect. Overall, mi gente, if you've ever been in a toxic relationship or you're currently in a toxic relationship, don't feel dumb, okay? You're human, and sometimes, as sad as it sounds, chaos feels familiar. But honestly, what I have learned over the years is that you deserve peace, you deserve love. You deserve love that doesn't turn you into a detective at 2 a.m. with anxiety. You deserve a love that doesn't drain you. So if you're confusing drama with desire or chaos with chemistry, then maybe it's time to take a step back and reevaluate your relationship. And if somebody's only consistent trait is to make you cry, then babe, please block and moisturize. Don't forget to follow, rate the show, and share it with a messy friend. We all have one. I'm pretty sure I'm the messy friend in the friend group, but I'm not sure yet. TBD. Thanks for tuning in with Café con Yeli. See you next time.
La mañana café, por la tarde ron, ya estamos en la calle, sale tu balcón.
Por la mañana.